Besties. I'm Christine.
And I'm Colin.
And this is just a little bit of a glance into our personal lives. We took a little bit of a break from the last episode to now because we welcomed our daughter into the world at the end of July. So we're super excited about that. But obviously, we've had our hands full for a few months now. And now that she is 12 weeks old, as of today actually, we're feeling like we have a little bit more of a handle on things and are ready to start recording again and make this a little bit more regular. So for today's topic, I figured we could update everyone on what life is like with a newborn. We're going to share some highlights, some challenges, and some surprises of welcoming our first child into the world. So let's start on the positive note with highlights. My first highlight of being her mom that I want to share is when she smiles and coos at you. It is the cutest thing in the entire world, and it makes everything so worth it. We obviously can't have true conversations right now. It would be ridiculous if she was able to talk at 12 weeks old, but she is able to communicate somewhat by smiling back at us and making little noises. So our conversations are usually a lot of ooh, hoo noises, and her smiling and us smiling back, and she absolutely loves to do that. She probably does that a few times every day, and in fact today she did it super loudly for probably 5 minutes straight with me before I was like, okay, I don't know what you want to communicate here, but we gotta move on to something else because you're getting really loud. I don't know if you want to share anything on that or go right into your first highlight.
Well, my first highlight is the same highlight, so I'll just add that it is obviously a great feeling because we don't have a baby genius and we don't actually know what's going on in her mind, so to be able to hear her in her own way of expressing her love and excitement, and more recently, I think we witnessed this last night, she's definitely becoming more excitable as she's becoming more aware of her other surroundings and just being comfortable in the house. And I mean, she was running in place, and when I say running in place, on her back while we were changing her during her bedtime routine yesterday, and I mean, you would have thought she was like running a marathon and trying to go as fast as she could, and just super happy and swinging her arms and swinging her legs. So it's always great that she is able to, I think, express in that way, because otherwise I think it would be difficult for us to understand if we were making her happy or making her feel comfortable, and I guess that's the only confirmation we can get.
For sure, and it takes a little while for babies to be able to do things like that, so for the first few weeks of her life, we weren't getting any of that kind of feedback, so now that we're getting it all the time, it's just super exciting and rewarding. So my next highlight is going to be about her sleep, and I want to actually start this highlight by saying, I totally don't mind when people ask, is she sleeping through the night? But I think we should try to back away from asking new parents that all the time, because first of all, it's not normal for babies to be sleeping through the night at this age. They are still so small and need to be fed pretty regularly. So if your baby is sleeping through the night, like, you are extremely lucky. So asking people about it and reminding them that their baby is not sleeping through the night and almost acting like, oh, that's disappointing, I wish people would not do that. So here's a tip: if you are not a parent, because those are usually the people that ask, no, that is not a great question to ask new parents. Ask probably anything else, and it will go a little better than, hey, is your baby sleeping through the night yet? So anyway, she is not sleeping through the night, in case you couldn't tell by all of that. But she is pretty solid as far as night sleep goes. So we purchased the Snoo, which is decently expensive bassinet, because it automatically rocks the baby and turns up white noise as the baby it starts to show signs of being awake, so it will help put babies back to sleep without you having to get up and intervene, which is really nice, and it does end up helping the babies kind of sleep train without you having to go through the hard steps of not reacting to your child crying that sleep training requires. So I will say that probably plays a huge part in this, but as of now, we start her bedtime routine at 7, which is super fun. We give her a bath, change her, feed her, read to her, give her baby massage, not all in that order, but those are the things that we do during her bedtime routine, and then put her down awake in the snoo, and she falls asleep on her own in there within a few minutes, which is pretty awesome because most babies need to fall asleep on you first and then be put down asleep, which doesn't always set up the best habits for sleeping later on. But we put her down by 7:30. Then we wake her to feed her around 9:30, which is called a dream feed. I am obviously going to be going to bed around that time, and then she kind of stays asleep through the feeding, so it's just meant as a way to kind of extend how long she can go before she'll wake me up next. And then she wakes us up around 2 for another feeding, and then we get her up for the day around 7. And she only takes a few minutes to eat, get changed, and go right back to sleep during that 2 o'clock hour, so I think she averages under 15 minutes of being awake in the night, which is amazing. I'm super grateful. I don't know if it's been work that we've done or if she's just naturally a good sleeper or if it's the snoo, but whatever is happening is working pretty well, and I'm very grateful for that. I don't know if you have anything you want to say on that topic or just go into your highlight.
No, I'll just go into my highlight because my second highlight is that she's pretty low maintenance, and he talked about how quick it is during the night. Like, would you not want to wake up and have to feed her and change her? Of course, but I mean, it's a 5-10 minute thing at the most nights, and I think we're pretty lucky on that end. I just think overall, we talk about this pretty much all the time. Like, if you're putting babies in a bucket, which maybe you shouldn't do, easy or difficult, our baby Stella, she's been pretty much in the easy bucket the whole time. She has her fits, she has her moments. I felt terrible when she's screaming and yelling, but I think part of it is we came in with expectations that it's not supposed to be easy to have a baby, whereas I don't know that all new parents come in with those expectations. And I think the other part of it is we are pretty caring and we are pretty chill people, so she's in what I think is a really comfortable environment overall, and I think that makes it easier for her to adapt and to learn, and so she's not frustrated all the time or really jazzed up with a ton of energy or like overstimulated or something like that. She's just kind of with us and going through the way that we go through life, which is at a pretty, I think, normal rate compared to a lot of people that we know. So low maintenance has been great because as much as we have to do and as difficult as it can be at times, I think it could be a lot worse, and I think we could be a lot more tired than we are right now.
Totally fair. So my third kind of highlight of having a baby at home is just watching her change and grow and learn. She has already changed so much from the time she was born. It's insane. Babies change so rapidly. She looks like a completely different human being than the one I gave birth to. She has doubled in size pretty much. She was born at around 6 pounds, and now she's got to be around 12. She had long brown hair when she was born, and now it's like blonde peach fuzz. She just has changed so much, and she keeps learning new things, which is really exciting to see all those milestones. Like, she is very easily able to track locations of us, or like if we hold a toy in front of her, her head turns and looks around at the toy, which babies don't do at first. She has rolled over from her stomach to her back, and just overall seeing her be way more alert is super interesting and rewarding to see.
And my third highlight is one of my favorites. Before I knew Stella was going to be a girl, just when we found out that we were going to have a baby, I had put together a clip of 3 hours of Yankees highlights, radio calls, TV calls, different things throughout the years that I just obviously love the Yankees, and I'm hoping that Stella will love the Yankees, and so far indications are good that she does, because not only does she just like to sit around and listen to the clips that I put together, but we've also found that it's a coping mechanism too when she's getting a little crazy. So it's I guess no surprise, baseball is a little bit more of a chill sport and can help, and It's just really nice that she has liked the Yankee stuff so far, because that gives me hope that she's going to be a fan one day. And I've recently found out that she loves Britney Spears, so much so that when I sing and dance with her, she moves around and laughs and giggles like in a way that I have never seen her do before. We just found that, or I just found that out yesterday, and have since shared it with Christine. And it's really, really funny and really interesting. I don't know how many people know this, but the first 2 concerts I ever went to were Britney Spears concerts at the old grandstand at the New York State Fair. So even before I got to see like my first favorite classic rock artist, I saw Don Henley, who's one of the members of the Eagles. I saw Britney Spears twice. And now it's like coming all full circle that my little 3-month-old loves to hear Britney Spears, and I'm lip syncing and dancing with her. And it's a lot of fun. It's definitely like one of those silly dad-daughter moments that you see online in social media, but I really enjoy it.
That is funny. And on the Yankees note, I actually find it funny that you love that she loves listening to that, because what it does is calms her down and puts her to sleep, which I can personally relate to, because baseball also puts me to sleep.
Hilarious.
I am hilarious. So that's kind of the highlights we wanted to talk about. I think now we can move into some of the challenges of having a newborn. And the first one I wanted to touch on was just breastfeeding. Ended up being a lot more challenging in the beginning than I expected it to be. I have stuck it out and continue to plan to stick it out, but the first few weeks were super challenging. She had a great latch. We had no problems there, but we still just ran into issues with me having an oversupply, her wanting to eat all the time, sometimes it being very painful, even though her latch was good, just because, you know, you're not used to having a mouth on your breasts all the time, so you have to get used to that. And now it's much easier, but the beginning I was like, why did I make this decision? Waking up in the night and having it be all on you every time is pretty tough, but it does get better. I did get through it. The beginning required like so many different products to help me through it. Like I was putting on cream to help the sore, cracked skin that I was getting from it, and I needed a pillow to prop her up, and I needed water near me at all times, and just all this stuff. Now, I still need water near me at all times, but I can pretty much feed her anywhere, which is really nice. It just takes a lot of time and took diligence, and I will say the other part of it that's still kind of frustrating is the diligence and just rigor that is required. It's not like I could just have Colin give her a bottle and me be off doing whatever I want. If he's giving her a bottle, I have to be pumping, because it is all supply and demand. So you don't really get any true breaks. And you have to be really on top of what the schedule is. Now that we have a schedule, it's much better. I feed her every 3 hours, but there was a while that I was feeding her almost hourly because she had reflux and it made her throat feel better when she was feeding. So it was pretty constant. I'm very grateful that those days are over. But yeah, that's the first challenge I wanted to touch on.
Mine is also a feeding challenge, and I guess we'll find out how many people actually listen to this, because I'll either get made fun of for going to Britney Spears concerts, or if you have bottle feeding tips, please send them my way. She sometimes is good with the bottle, like this morning she was good with it, I would say, all things considered, but for the most part, she's definitely not the type of baby that's like, oh my god, give me a bottle, I will suck it down. I've seen other babies do that, and I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but there are times where I'm thinking about getting the
eyedropper,
yeah, to get the milk in her, because she just won't take the bottle. So it's one of those same things that you were talking about, the diligence and the persistence. Like, it was even worse, if you can believe that, when we first started giving her a bottle, but it's gotten progressively slightly better. I wouldn't say it's improved at quite the same rate as your breastfeeding improved, but she's gotten better. I'm hoping she will continue to get better, because it is nice to, although you still have to pump, like you mentioned, just be able to take some of the load off of you. And she eventually will, I think, have to just go with bottles, like when you do stop breastfeeding, so eventually she's going to need to learn how to do it, but that's where we are right now.
Well, it'll probably take a little longer too, just because we're giving her 1 bottle a day, whereas she's being fed from me like 6 or 7 other times a day, so it makes sense that it rapidly improved quicker than giving her a bottle rapidly improves.
Yeah.
Who knows, maybe she'll make it through this entire bottle stage without really taking one, and then we'll just be giving her regular milk in a sippy cup 9 months from now. Who knows? We'll see. So the next challenge that I will say is, I know I talked earlier about how much I love watching her change and grow, but how quickly she grows is also challenging, because it makes me super sad to see my tiny baby be so different. And it means we go through clothes fairly quickly. I guess it's not as quick as most people would expect. Like, she is in the size that matches her age. Like, she wore newborn for a while, then she was in 0 to 3 month clothing, and now she's just starting to move into 3 to 6 month clothing, and that is her age. And I know my mom told me you're supposed to like double the age for their clothing that they go in, so she would be in 6 month clothing by now or something. But either way, it's still hard to feel like such a small amount of time has passed and so much change has happened. It's rewarding, but it's also like, oh my god, where did my baby go? So that's been hard for me.
My second challenge is around time, and there's obviously the caveat of a global pandemic being thrown into this, which has, I think, created even more of a bottleneck in terms of time. So we are not sending Stella to daycare for the remainder of 2020. Possibly the beginning of 2021, we're just going to wait and see what the world looks like on January 4th and just make our decisions based off of that, versus trying to make decisions right now on everything. So Stella will be home with us in the foreseeable future. When you hear this episode, Christine will have started work again, because she starts work on Monday. This episode will come out next Thursday. So it's one of those things where both of our jobs require a lot of client time. You know, me running my business, and then, you know, her full-time job on the marketing side is very client heavy. So it'd be a little different if we were just behind the computer screen all day and doing more behind the scenes work in general, but it makes it difficult to figure out how to balance our time, you know, our work time, the time that we want to use to get our active time in, time that we want to use to be social with people or just be with ourselves and relax and have quality time together, and then try to add in time with Stella and have quality time there where we're either playing with her and having fun, or we're doing some developmental things. Now, the 0 to 6 month developmental school academy things that we could be doing for her aren't like rocket science by any means, but they still take time, they still take persistence, they still take that you like have to do it mentality. Otherwise it won't ever get done. So like, if we want her to keep progressing, we have to keep doing these things, because we won't have a daycare or a preschool teacher or whatever it was, you know, at this stage of development helping her out. So just trying to figure all that out. My mornings start at 4:55 now, and so far that has worked, and I'm hopeful it will continue to work in the near future at the very least. But definitely had to stretch our days out and do things a little bit differently than we did before we had kids, or even before the pandemic. But I know it all balanced out, but I would say that's definitely one of the more challenging things right now, is just how do we do it all, given that we don't really, I think, have enough time to actually do it all, if that makes sense.
I think about that all the time, how there's just not enough time in the day for us to do everything that we're trying to do. So we're doing the best we can with what we got. But my final challenge is a little bit on the lighter side, and that is that I got pooped on recently. So while I was feeding her, we had a photo shoot, actually. That's where I should start with this. We had a photo shoot. So she was wearing a t-shirt and pants instead of a onesie. And one of the benefits of onesies is when kids have a blowout, it at least somewhat holds it in. She had a blowout while I was feeding her, and it just came straight up out of her leggings onto me. And I felt it as soon as it happened, and I was wearing black leggings, and breastfed baby poop looks like mustard. So it looked like someone stepped on a bottle of mustard and it got all over me. So it was funny, but it was also a little frustrating because I was in the backseat of my car in a park. I was not home. It's not like I could just easily wash myself off and change. So we had to clean her up, clean me up, clean up the car, and then still get home. So that was a fun little challenge of being a mom.
My last challenge is to take a line from Christine. She says that they say it takes a village, but we can't really have a village in a pandemic to raise a child. And part of that is the choice that we made to move down to Charlotte, and that takes us away from a lot of our either immediate family or extended family. But the reality is we're in a pandemic, and they probably wouldn't have been too much of a help anyway, not because they wouldn't have wanted to help, but because of the realities of this virus wouldn't have allowed for them to help. So we are definitely feeling that, even we have really great neighbors. We have some really good friends in the Charlotte area. People have brought us meals and helped out in ways that they can. But Stella didn't have her diaper changed by anyone other than her, you or I, until she was like 2.5, almost 2.5 months old, or a little over 2 months old. Yep. When we again made the choice to come up to the north and to the Syracuse, Scranton areas to see family, and my mom changed her diaper when we got to the house to drop my brother off, and that was the first time anyone, my brother hadn't even done it yet, just because, I don't know, he's 24 and not comfortable. He has since changed the diaper, so I'll give him credit where credit is due. But it's not just diaper changing, obviously, but it was kind of eye-opening to see like how much more quality time you and I would have if we could do things like during regular hours of the day. We still get that like 2-hour window when she goes to bed at 7 where we hang out, but it's definitely going to be on the couch. We're both exhausted, and we're not going out anywhere because it's a pandemic, and not bringing a babysitter into the house unnecessarily and everything. So there's definitely been a lot of challenges. It's definitely helped us, I think, grow and become even more confident in our abilities. And obviously Stella is thriving and doing really well, but there are definitely times where you're just like, man, can somebody just take it for 30 minutes and just let us kind of do something. I'm not saying we want to go out and get blasted drunk or anything like that, but just to kind of take the weight off every once in a while would be nice, and that's just something that's not really in the cards right now.
For sure. And it was so nice when we were in Syracuse to be around people who have had babies themselves and obviously raised us, and we're fine. So just having that level of trust, like, oh, you know how to take care of a baby. There's pretty much nothing that could happen that you wouldn't know what to do in this situation. And that just allowed us to leave her for short periods of time and like go hang out in the hot tub with a glass of wine or go for our workout together instead of taking all of our time to do separate workouts, So it was really nice in that sense. And if we were not in a pandemic, it would be really nice to kind of have that. But that's enough challenges. We'll talk about some surprises. One thing that really surprised me was that you are really busy with a baby, but you feel like you're not doing anything because you have to spend your time on whatever the baby needs. So a lot of times that's feeding, changing, and watching her, maybe doing a little bit of playing. You're kind of confined to the room you're in unless you want to like tote her around and all of her stuff that she could possibly be using in that moment. So it takes up a lot of time, but at the end of the day, you're not like, wow, I did so much today. You're like, wow, I watched a baby play today, pretty much. So that has been something I definitely wasn't expecting. I thought I would feel very accomplished just by doing my motherhood duties. Do you want to share any of your challenges?
I thought we were off at challenges.
I'm sorry. We are off of challenges. Do you want to share any of your surprises?
I didn't know if you were done.
Yes, I was done.
My first surprise is that somebody asked me like what's been like the hardest adjustment to make, and I had to think about it, and the conclusion I came to is that with a baby there's time obviously, but there's less time than ever before to make adjustments. Like you just have to do things, and you don't have time to like think about different scenarios, or really even think about like what you could have done differently until maybe she goes to bed for the night, and you just have to do things. So it's like even if you don't want to adjust, she'll force you to adjust. Otherwise she's gonna scream and cry and not be happy and get sick and all these bad things that can happen to babies. So there's just no real time to adjust. You just do it now. That's one of the surprises, I think.
For sure. I was also surprised by how much a crying baby gets to you. Before I had her, I could not understand why people were so reactive to their baby crying. I'm like, it's just a baby. They don't know why they're crying a lot of the time. They're not going to remember that they cried when they were little and you didn't help them immediately or anything like that. So I just expected it to not be that big of a deal, especially because other people's babies crying is not a big deal to me. But hearing her cry specifically, there must be something biological within us that makes you react to it, because as soon as she cries, I'm like, oh my God, she needs me. What do I need to do? And it's harder than I expected it to be. It's especially hard to hold yourself back when they're crying. So
Yeah.
that surprised me.
I would say you definitely have a harder time with her crying and just letting her cry than I do. I mean, it hurts sometimes when she is crying, but I think like I realize a lot of times why she's crying, and I don't know, I guess that just makes it okay in my head, and I'm like, okay, I know why she's crying. There's nothing actually wrong with her. She's just maybe frustrated, or she just doesn't understand, and us coddling her isn't really going to improve the situation, so let's just let her cry for a minute or two and everything. But I know you've gotten better, but I would say that's definitely been easier for me than it has been for you.
I think it's also biological in mothers specifically, because I've heard this across a number of couples.
Yeah, my second surprise is that I am trusting my instincts more than I thought I was going to, like, coming into everything. I mean, we read a lot. We didn't read, like, every book out there. Like, we weren't that maniacal, but we read, pretty much every week some updates as to what the baby was, what to expect, all these things to get prepared, especially the stuff that we got from the hospital. And I won't say that I don't use any of that information, but I think what I've learned is that I like to get like the guide, I like to get the framework. Like, for example, now I know at this stage during the day she isn't supposed to sleep more than 5 hours during the day, so I'm, whether we're clocking it on our app or just I'm doing it in my head, naturally I'm just guided by this 5 hour thing between the 4 naps that she takes when she wakes up at 7. And that is just, I guess it's not instinctual there, but like that's one of the examples of like, just give me a guide, give me an idea of like how I need to raise her, and then I'm at least comfortable making some of those decisions on my own, on the fly, flexing around here and there with everything. So I feel like overall I've definitely trusted my instincts, and I guess that goes back to my first thing with the adjustments. Like, it's because you just don't have a lot of time to go back and check the book or something like that. You just got to do things.
Yeah. And mine actually feeds off of kind of those two statements as well, and just saying that my last surprise really was how quickly you figure out what it is that you need to know. So before we had her, I felt like, wow, there's just so much to learn. How am I ever going to remember all of this? But truly, once you're in it, you just get it. There are still some things that I learned a little later than I should have, like pull the ruffles out on the sides of the diaper, and that'll help prevent blowouts. Well, that would have been nice to know a little bit earlier on. But in general, you pick up on a lot of what you need to know very quickly, and as overwhelming as it all sounds if you don't have a child, it becomes much less overwhelming when you're in the moment doing it. So at least that has worked out better than I kind of thought it would.
Yeah, and I would say my last surprise goes back to the whole it takes a village, and I'm just a little surprised given the fact that we haven't had much help, and we don't have, I would say, in this area, we don't have as many friends who have had kids yet. We have more of those friends up north. It's gone pretty well. And so we can't complain. We're both pretty happy. Like I said, we're not exhausted by any means. And it seems like Stella's happy, healthy, growing. And so I'm a little surprised. I mean, I knew we were capable. I know we're going to be good parents, but just given the circumstances that everything's gone as well as I think it possibly could have to this point is a little surprising. So hopefully there's nothing on the other side that is waiting for us, but that would be my last surprise, just how well things have gone.
And if there is anything on the other side waiting for us, this is now public knowledge that it came from Colin putting that energy out into the universe right now by saying that. All right. So that is what we wanted to share as far as our little update on being parents. We would love to hear from anyone else who has gone through anything similar. Always happy to talk about this kind of stuff with anyone. Now, we are going to get back to recording regularly for Behind the Seas, but outside of that, the Dynamic Leaders podcast episodes will be released in pod series. So a pod series was just released fairly recently, so the next one's going to come in Q1 of 2021. Can't believe we're almost there. So go ahead, head to the show profile on whatever platform you listen on and download that recent pod series if you haven't done that yet. Check it out. There's some great episodes in there. And until next time, take it easy.